So, I've been asked many times about exhaust rattle on the flaps on these. This is actually not an M140 or 135 or the other 35 or 40 iterations. It's actually off a 428i, I think it's off. But same theory. Basically, they've got a flap on one side. This little springy thing here is the thing responsible for it rattling, because basically there isn't enough tension in the spring. I've actually squeezed this spring to make it replicate one that does have a problem, because this one didn't. So just excuse me while I try to make it rattle a bit. So the pressure against it, pressure against it will make it rattle at a fast rate and sound horrible. Obviously this is off the car, so with it on the car, the easiest way to do it on any of them is to undo the 13mm clamp here and the 13mm clamp there, and that will allow the whole exhaust to drop, but only maybe by 3 inches or something like that. But it's enough to make it easier to get access to this, because it can be a bit fiddly. I would advise using like a little ratchet, maybe a smaller one than that, like one of the quarter ones, but it's a 10mm socket on there. Undo it, and this and the plate underneath come off, the spring will fall out of place. But as I said, it can be a little bit awkward with it under the car. But there's a plate. Basically, once you've undone that and undone that, the exhaust will only drop as far as the plate, which is halfway along the car. So it's not putting any pressure on any parts further up the car. It's only it's just resting on that plate, so you're not doing any damage. Obviously, it's better if you can jack the car up at the back as well, a bit. But only, again, if you jack it up on the passenger side, because all of these flaps on all of them are on the passenger side. So yeah, jack it up on the passenger side, put whatever underneath to stop it from causing you any damage, and then that will give you access to, combined with dropping it down a bit, will give you good access to get these undone, because you've also at the end got to be able to get the spring back in, which again you want as much access as possible. Right, I will turn off the video for a second and undo this. So I've undone the 3 bolts. You're better off doing it by hand. I used an impact gun, but this exhaust is just for the bin, so it doesn't matter. But these bits are quite soft, so if you use an impact gun or something, it can damage the threads inside there. But anyway, so you can see that that comes away. It does have a platey bit underneath. You don't have to worry about that too much. And then the spring just comes out. You can see here that the spring, this part, sits in that notch, and then the other end of the spring sits in that notch there. So you can't really mess it up, because this will be in the right position as to what it was before. Oh, and there's a spider. There's quite a nasty looking spider under there. Oh, and eggs! Oh wow! This is turning into a nature documentary. Anyway, we'll ignore that for a minute. So the spring, I have got a vice clamp. Basically, I am going to put one end of the spring in the vice and then stretch it. But I'll show you lightly how I'm going to do it, because I'll need both hands to do it properly. We'll come back in a second. So now we've got the spring in the clamp. I'm not sure whether BMW's issue is the metal that they've used, or that they were never tensioned properly. In this 428 one, the tension was completely fine, but in a lot of the ones that I've looked at on the 35 and 40i's, they're just a little bit slack. So basically I'm going to grab one end and just bend it away from the other end. So not twist, but literally one way, one end away from the other. So you're adding extra tension to the spring. I'm going to have to do this off camera, but when you come back you should see that that is further down than it was before. Right, I didn't put like massive amounts of pressure on, but enough to just basically bend it. So now it's been bent. As you can see, it's probably 4 mil, maybe it's been bent by at this end. So now what we've got to do is undo it, the vise, and then slot it back in the slot. We'll do that now. So it will be a little bit more difficult to get the spring back in because it's got quite a bit of tension against it, but you can see that it's actually so pressurized that it's coming through the hole. So now what you've got to do is get the other end, which now has no spider in it. I didn't kill the spider, I put it behind the bin. So this will line up with the bit underneath. We'll put the cover on, make sure it slots into place. Now I'm going to have to come off camera while I secure it down, because now with all the tension I've got to put quite a lot of pressure against this so that the spring goes down. So it's all put back in, everything's back in place, and there shouldn't be any rattle anymore. Not that this particular exhaust had a rattle in the first place. It didn't need stretching. Again, whether or not the metal is responsible and it hasn't got enough spring in it, or it was never they were never tensioned enough in the first place, is open to debate. But I did one about 6 months ago and haven't heard anything back, so the rattle must be gone, and his rattle was horrendous. So it seems to resolve it, at least in the 6-month term so far, and it's a very easy fix. So even if it did happen again 6 months later, you just undo 3 bolts and sort it out. Easy as that.